Welcome back, James,
Thank you so much.
and thank you for making the time. For the listener and the viewers out there, thank you for joining this video. I hope you will stay until the end. I think you should stay to the end, at least for two reasons. First reason being that June 2026 will most probably be a totally game-changing event related to exactly the alien abduction, mind control, MK Ultra related subject, and because James Martinez, who is sitting here with us and taking his time, who is a very vintage freedom fighter, because James were amongst the very first to point out the related fields of alien and abduction and mind control, MK Ultra, back in the 1990s, and of course together with his associate at that time, Walter Bauer, the author of the book Operation Mind Control, which James eventually in the 19s were helping and co-authoring a special edition. So, James, before we dive into the thick of the rough here, is it okay with you if I just segue our listeners and viewers into the subject, because what we're going to talk about will blow the mind of many people, and they'll be going, "Oh no, that's simply too much." So when we start talking about MK Ultra and alien abduction, it's not because that we are talking any kind of conspiracy theory, because let's hear it from mainstream media. Let's hear it from Newsweek, who made an article and a short video presenting what MK Ultra is. And that was from Newsweek, a video made by Newsweek, together with an article, and I'll of course link to this article, this first post article as well. I will link to, and that brings us into the topic of why there's all this focus on MK Ultra at this point in time, because Tulsi Gabbard is the security advisor of Donald Trump, and herself and Representative Luna has been heavily reported in the media because of some circumstances related to MK Ultra. So at the end of this interview, I also want to show the trailer for the Steven Spielberg movie Disclosure Day, because, and I just watched the trailer before going on the show here, and it's like it's mind blowing. It really is. I can so much see it with your glasses on, James. But maybe it's best that you talk us through what is going to happen in June of 2026, and how this is related to the subject of mind control, the subject of controlling the masses, and the subject of MK Ultra, which is one of the roots of this mind controlling game. Please, James.
In not not too distant future, here in a couple of weeks, the release of this Spielberg movie, who's probably one of the top filmmakers of all time, is the follow-up to a movie called Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which came out over 30 years ago. Um, that was the first real movie that covered the subject accurately at that time.
That
It
was the
was
one
way,
with that tones, and it wasn't a do 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 do
that's
something
correct.
like that. Yes, I remember
Yeah,
it.
that's the one.
Yep.
Yeah, and when that came out, that was way ahead of its time, but it was actually more like a documentary than an actual movie. And that, when it was premiered also in front of living presidents at that time. And there's discussions between presidents and Steven Spielberg because they knew the secret at that time, and they had to prepare the public over a very long sort of I wouldn't educational campaign in the press and in culture itself. So now we're here, 2026, after years and years and years of this subject matter being instituted in culture, primarily in the US. I mean, I know it's in other parts of the world, but in the US is where the real sort of crimes against humanity were taking place uh, for the what would be called the national security reasons. So, hope that noise doesn't get in the background too much. Is that noise in the
Most of the
background?
noise is blanketed out by the noise cancelers, so it's probably more
Oh,
noisy
okay,
in
okay,
your end.
okay, perfect. Okay, so the new film, the timing of it has been designed by our own government here in the Pentagon to happen at the same time as the hearings that were supposed to take place regarding MK Ultra. Now, MK Ultra is that book to your left, written by Walter Bowart. He was my business partner and best friend. I worked with him until he died. And the follow-up book, Operation Mind Control, the special researchers edition, covered my testimony and information that I gave to him regarding the whole alien abduction phenomena, which was taking place in the US very secretly, very, very secretly. So much of the stuff that has been hidden from the public is now going to be released and is being admitted by our own government here now. And this is for a number of reasons. It's been planned for a very long time, but that this disclosure movie is to create what's termed now as exopolitical or exopolitics, because of the fact that um, we now know that extraterrestrial beings and the vehicles in which they were utilized to get here, supposedly, uh, um, technology was taken from the crashes at various events all over the world by the US military. And then the technology of those crashes was back engineered into culture. And our internet, fiber optics, and a lot of other technology was back engineered from all of this. And it's because of that that the big defense contractor companies um, are ahead of everybody. They basically, there's a national security blanket that's covering all of this activity uh, thus far, but it's all going to change. And most recently, uh, in the last couple of weeks, while I was in Europe, I found out that they were going to be having hearings on MK Ultra uh, right at the same time as they were going to have hearings regarding disclosure as well, because they're both very much linked together. There's in the second book we wrote about it. Now you have to remember in the 90s um, in the United States, this was very, very taboo subject, very taboo subject. There was only a small handful of people that were risking their careers and lives to even discuss this because we had access to psychiatric files, um, hypnosis session files. Um, we had private meetings with the late John Mack, Dr. John Mack, who was the gentleman that basically legitimized the abduction phenomena. I was good friends with him and Bud Hopkins and Dr. Andrea Puharich, who were the people that really knew what was going on, because it's only recently in the United States that um, breeding programs between humans and extraterrestrials have now been discussed in public government sessions. This is absolutely unheard of and puts everything into question that people have thought has been going on since the early 40s. Now,
So
recently,
you're one of the original whistleblowers, we can say, uh, and actually still campaigning to enlighten the public as to what is going on.
yeah, I mean, it's important to know because people are wondering how the technology companies took over the world. It was easy. They were given the technology and they had monopolies from the very beginning. So companies like Google, for instance, uh, they didn't invent the internet. They had nothing to do with it. Uh, that was a CIA funded seed company, and it came from a
Documented,
different source. Yes,
financed by the U.S. government through CIA.
yes, and the National Security Agency. Um, now, ironically, before I came um, to the U.S. on this trip, I was summoned about 3 months ago by the National Security Agency, and they were looking for answers from me of technology that I knew on how to circumvent Havana syndrome and other things related to manipulation of the brain and the cerebral cortex from stimulation used for neurocognitive weapons that were going on. So all of this technology and what's going to happen in the next week or so here is the initiation of a completely new way of culture to even discuss matters anymore, because this phenomena and what's been going on now, it can't be hidden. There's too many people today that are coming up front and discussing it. But for the general public, they have no idea really the history of what's happened. And the United States was the first country to have organized meetings secretly. That was designed and put together by a gentleman by the name of Gabriel Green in the 50s, who started the Amalgamated Flying Saucer Club of America. He also was the first contactee to run for president. He had an actual legitimate campaign and actually got votes. At the time, of course, it was way ahead of anybody's belief or understanding of what was going on.
You of
This was
all people
also,
know that.
yes, because Walter and I inherited all the contents from the Amalgamated Flying Saucer Club of America after the death of Doris Van Tassel, who was a member of that, and her husband was George Van Tassel, who invented the something called the Integratron, which is a living monument out in Landers, California. Now, people don't even realize that in the 50s, thousands of people were coming from all over America and some other parts of the world to this location called Giant Rock in California to discuss all these events that were occurring from people all over the world. And the general public really doesn't know anything about that at all. So when I looked at all the contents of what we inherited, it dovetailed with all the abduction cases which were coming in from all over the United States, uh, from places from New York all the way to Washington, D.C. And these people didn't know each other, and they were all saying the same stories. It was extremely paranoid and private because people were afraid of losing their job, their marriages, their reputation, everything, because at that point it was still being suppressed. Now, 2026, all of this veil is going to be lifted, and the public now is going to be educated, sort of, about what's really going on,
E-
because this is a political move,
Even by
a major political
former
move.
presidents. We had Barry Soetoro just after we talked the first time, actually going out and say, "Well, yeah, I believe aliens are real," and then he backed down a little bit, but
Yeah, and I told you he was involved. He
yeah,
was
yeah,
involved when he
yeah,
was a
yeah,
teenager, and he worked on black projects as a teenager by design because he knew he was going to be president when he was a teenager. And one of the people that worked with him also ran for president. His name is Andrew Brishago. I know him very well. He's a good friend. And I met with him in Los Angeles and other people that worked with him for the Mars jump room. This was teleportation and time travel related issues. So all this technology seems like science fiction to a lot of people because people don't take the time out to really look into the history of who's saying what and why they're saying it. So now, presently,
and of course it has to
Congress,
be said Barry Soetoro is of course Barack Obama. If people were
yes,
not
yes,
following that.
yeah, and he's heavily protected and involved with all the child trafficking as well. That needs to go on record, and all his associates are as well. So his colleagues, Andrew Brishago and another gentleman, actually lived with one of the his colleagues that worked on the Mars project with Barry, and he was quite damaged from all the experimentation that he went through, and was suffering quite a bit as he was going to private meetings at Jet Propulsion Laboratory with other astronauts. Because there's at JPL or around there, there's AA meetings, which for Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and a lot of there's private sessions and then the public sessions. He was going to the private sections because the astronauts and other people that worked in black projects that were alcoholics were going to these meetings. So I lived with him and heard the whole story in detail about what had happened. So we have an entire history that's run parallel to the one that we've been told about that is completely, totally different with different facts and different activities that have been going on. So because of the corruption in the United States that's been exposed over the past couple of years, the UFO issue and MK Ultra have now come to the very forefront after 60 years, basically, of neuroscience being used on the public without any consent at all. So uh, this technology has been heavily exploited in the entertainment industry by movies like The Long Kiss Goodnight, The Bourne Supremacy, Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson, Manchurian Candidate by Denzel Washington. Uh, many different movies. Billions have been made on the exposure of the work that we did a long time ago, because it wasn't that we talked about the church water hearings when they were talking about MK Ultra. We the point of it is that we proved that it was operational. Hence the title of the book, Operation Mind Control, because it was active. My role was the exposure of how
Even
they
though
were
it was
faking.
discontinued or meant to have been discontinued in the 70s.
Yeah, they said it was discontinued, but no, it was not discontinued. They were utilizing it for the trafficking of children and also behavior modification for the military and for socio-political uh, culture jamming, as it's referred to shape the value systems and political situation of candidates, whether they could be presidential or congressional or senators or things of that nature, because of the technology that they were using, which today is so far advanced now that this is going to have to be discussed in a very public way. I've been tasked to testify before Congress on this matter, and um, as I told you yesterday, um, privately, I am not going to be testifying before Congress because our own government is bankrupt. The corporation is going down in flames as we speak. And before the end of June, before Tulsi Gabbard leaves office, now she's the Defense National Intelligence Director. So she governs over all the other 16 intelligence agencies that are public. There's some that are private. So recently in the news, they were going to have hearings, and a lot of the data and information regarding that was um, uh, offices were, they say the word raided. Uh, that's a little, could be extreme. Those raided or not, all the data was taken away from offices of um, Tulsi Gabbard and also Congresswoman Luna,
For,
because there's a big organized effort by 16 uh, congressional leaders to expose all of this because it's dovetails with all of the child trafficking in Epstein, and it also dovetails with what is going on in the UFO disclosure movement because the information that was in the Epstein files, they're using behavior modification and directed energy weapons at the brain, and there's all of that subject matter is covered, as well as the genetic modification things that have been going on with interbreeding, which was a huge, gigantic secret in the 90s that only a handful of people would even discuss. One of them was Betty Hill, who I knew very well. The other one was Marion Shenafield. Um, Bob Dean knew about it. Colonel Fletcher Prouty knew about it. Colonel Thomas Bearden knew about it. But they basically um, changed their lives and their careers by taking a risk and going out on a limb and discussing that these matters were happening. And what you'll see in the movie are things related to all the data that was compiled over many, many years having to do with the interactions with extraterrestrials and why they're doing what they're doing. Some of that has already been chronicled by Whitley Strieber, who is an individual in the United States that's had a movie made about him, quite a few, called Communion. He's a very famous writer and was one of the first people to go public about this stuff going on. And of course, everybody thought he was a crackpot. So, because of the delays of all this information going on, they've pushed things back um, so that these disclosures are happening in tangent while the movie is released in a gigantic amount of theaters in the US. And of course, it will go to Europe. And eventually, this subject matter, you're not going to be able to make distinctions politically or socially without including this subject matter in it. Because we've all made decisions about what's going on, what our value systems are, and who's doing what with all false pretenses and minimal information. So this is a huge shift that's about to happen. People are talking about it here already in the U.S., all over the place. So
you told me about the movie. I wasn't on par with this, and I watched this trailer, and we're going to watch it in the end on this interview as well. It's amazing how predictive programming or suggestive programming, how it's actually massaging the reality, or let's just say a version of the reality, into the mind of the people. Because, of course, when you talk about the disclosure of aliens, the proof of aliens, they are, of course, going to disclose a version of this, which is not going to be reality. And this movie, as I understand it, if I understand it right, is massaging the public mind in that direction as they want it.
yeah, the end goal and outcome that they seek is to post suggest to an audience a subject matter that's been um, massaged into the collective conscious of people in the United States primarily for the last 60 years. And Spielberg's been a part of that from the movie Close Encounters, right? So the end outcome that they seek is that they want the public to feel as if all the technology that's coming out, including 5G and 6G, is to uh, um, exercise or get people ready for the inclusion of communication with advanced intelligence. Therefore, the brain computer interface and quantum and all those things will merge with our brains and central nervous system. So it's a post suggestive piece of material to prepare everybody to get into these discussions. And you're going to see it all over the place. It's going to be in corporate news. It's going to be in private um, podcasts. Uh, People are going to jump all over this like you've never seen before. So they're already doing it now, and people are already going on record saying, "Okay, this is being done as a diversion tactic to keep people away from the 3 million files of Epstein that have not been released, which are 1,000 times more gruesome than you'd ever imagine. All of that we put in Operation Mind Control in the early 90s because we knew what was going on. And uh, all this is, for me, this is like old news finally coming to public. It's taken forever. It's taken forever. People understand it takes. If I give you a new idea or a new fact that is not in your current understanding of what reality is, uh, often the best thing to do is to put it into fiction or put it in as a joke or put it in as a subject. Oh, that's just over there. But you do it over a long period of time so that you can get to your the receiver or the audience to uh, normalize it into a conversation before you actually get into the meat of it, so to speak, the actual details of it. Because a good portion still in the U.S. thinks this is all just fantasy and science fiction. And what the CIA does is they always mix fact and fiction at the same time so that they can control the outflow of information, which is about to occur here. Because MK Ultra, if it weren't for that, they would have had a much harder time uh, doing their goals. Now, everything that is discussed with outfits like the World Economic Forum and BlackRock and other companies now, there's like 4 or 5 startup companies now that are preparing to use your brain waves and genetics and your biometrics for this fusion of the brain computer interface to take place, which is this is going to be uh, already seeing the effects of it already because I know people that have already fused their brains. I was asked to talk to them, and they were contractors working for NATO in Europe when I was there because I spoke to them only twice. They were terrified of meeting me in person.
Of course, people
Um,
don't know if they haven't seen the first three interviews I've done with you. They don't know you're a special advisor to the brain computer interface group.
yeah, I was asked when uh, I was basically people in Washington, D.C. contacted me because they wanted me to bring all the data regarding Havana syndrome to RFK Jr., who was running for president.
Uh,
I
and
was actively educating him about this subject matter during his presidential campaign. So he interviewed me, and that never aired because of the information we discussed, because it's very personal to him. He's one of the few people in the world that actually know that I'm talking about and knew the people that I knew. So it was really good for me personally to talk with him because it was one of the first times that somebody has a reference point and understanding
mm,
of what's actually going on. But as you know, if you were a Kennedy, you have to keep your mouth shut
mm,
because of the history of that family. So because of those activities, was introduced to people from it, and then asked to be the special advisor for the brain-computer interface for the U.S., which is headed up by Brandy Smith. She's the chair lead on this, and this is a group called Insights. It's incits.org, and they are the group that handles the commercialization of brain computer wearables, they call them, which are used on the body to activate the brain computer interface to pick up on impulses from the brain, which is already happening because their cell phones are already doing this when they're on and near your body already, but they're not telling
I've
you that.
actually done some field studies in this field, being an engineer working for the telecoms industry myself. So they probably put an non-disclosure agreement on you, or tried to, I'm sure.
Well, when they asked me to join this group, I was asked to sign NDAs and all this other stuff, and I just wasn't going to do that because the rules of these committees, which determine what public policy is going to be in every country, by the way. Denmark has their own groups and other countries, and they're very organized and they're funded, and they work in tangent with public policy of how things are going to come out in the country, right? So I decided, they asked me, well, can you just be special advisor to us? Because it gives me more leverage and wiggle room to actually make the right decisions. And it's because of this that I was asked to testify before the government regarding all of this, because the United States is totally compromised by China, by previous governments that allowed and put China in position to lead this global change.
American
Uh,
exporting research and development
yes,
know-how to
gold
China on purpose.
on purpose. So we have basically mutiny inside our own government. And this is going on daily. You have the good guys that want us to be separate, independent, sovereign, and you have the other aspect of it, because we're not even run by our own people. Run by a foreign government. We're run by Israel. And people need to know this because it's come out now. Everybody knows that the decisions and policy makes of the United States are totally influenced behind the scenes by the Israeli government. Um, and Mossad and
Wagging the
CIA.
dog is another Hollywood analogy
Yes,
to this.
yes, yes. So all of that is now quite public, and it's caused an absolute fury in the United States of this influence. Now, also, uh, in relation to this, um, very shortly before Tulsi Gabbard leaves office, she is going to disclose how the elections were stolen and all the advanced technology that was utilized to steal multiple elections in multiple countries over a long period of time. That's going to lead to a chain of events, including the exposure of MK Ultra, on how the World Economic Forum and the technological elites have tried to take over the world, essentially, is what they're doing. Um, Now, I've just informed last night that Peter Thiel, who runs Palantir,
Palantir.
he has left the United States, and he's moving and going to be living in Argentina. I got text this morning about it because there's Palantir is directly involved with the brain computer interface, and they they have technology that would put us into a, a place like in the movie Minority Report. So they would be using mass surveillance for pre-crime, and your every move on every device that you have would be monitored. It already is monitored
Lovely.
now, but with their technology, it allows them to create personal algorithms having to do with your behavior that would be in data centers. which are a big subject matter today, presently, right now, of where are they putting all this information, where are they holding it, who owns it, is it private? No, it's not, because of the quantum computer. And that's another thing that's a big secret that's being released as well, is that the United States and China both have quantum computers. And that, therefore, that renders all secrecy, cryptography, and encryption obsolete. It also terrifies banks, because while I was in Europe, I was being asked to um, sell quantum encryption to banks. I was summoned to do that by members of the BCI community, to sell temporary patches, because we
BCI,
knew the
BCI,
brain computer interface. The
right?
BCI committees
Yeah.
made a lot of advanced technology people. So while I was in Europe, I was asked to go to Switzerland to meet with the people that had uh, quantum encryption um, technology to uh, help the banks, because the banks today in America, they're just information transmitters, and all of their data and banking data, which is supposed to be private, is not. It's totally open source, and anybody can steal it right now, because of the utilization of the quantum computing, which the public is being sold the fact that these things are are coming into being, but not ready yet, which is a disinformation campaign to gather investors and money, when really they already exist, and they're preparing the public to deal with that, which is another reason why all of this information is going to come out, because with quantum computers, you can't have secrets anymore. You can't have anything anymore. It completely changes everything. It's kind of like we're entering in with all this activity that I'm talking about, sort of like the singularity. It's either happening now, or it will occur suddenly. But my feeling is that it's happening now, in a slow effect on the public.
Silicon
Um,
Valley. Silicon Valley, they love this singularity concept. It's massively being rolled out from Silicon Valley.
that is correct.
So before we move on to actually, give people a bit of advice of how to maintain themselves in the coming period, could you just very brief, James, take us through MK Ultra from the beginning? I think even in France, through Tavistock, into MK Ultra, into 10 different at least projects, and into today, where it's heavily alive, despite the public fact being that it was put down in 73, I think.
Yeah, the last time I talked to you, I went into the history of how it started, because it actually started in Europe, at a hospital, where doctors were experimenting on patients that were supposedly mentally ill with schizophrenia and all these things. There's um, uh, a detailed understanding of where this happened, when I talked to you before, so your audience can go back and listen to that, because I go into each of the steps of it, because it was really, I mean, the mental health profession in psychiatry uh, was born out of torture and experimentation in Europe, right? So, and this was happening a long time ago, well over 150 years. Okay, experimentation. So um, this bridged uh, in World War II, because the Nazi Party and other governments were utilizing behavior modification techniques in the intelligence services, for all sorts of things. Um, main secrecy at that time, and how secrets were kept, was completely different than it is today. The black arts were completely, totally different. Um, a good glimpse into that was um, a movie starring Matt Damon that was about the creation of the CIA. Um, I forgot the title of it. Uh, Something with Shepard in it, but it went into how the formation of the CIA came into being in the first place, because it was the OSS first. OSS turned into CIA, but that
During
was
the Second World War, it was called OSS.
yes, yes.
Mm.
So during that time, uh, all the technology in neuroscience was going through the OSS. And when World War II ended and the negotiation happened at Nuremberg, all the technology from the Nazi Party was moved into the United States. And that's how NASA was born. And that's how MK Ultra was perfected. It was perfected in the United States after World War II. And what we know as the mental health profession and psychiatry is a manifestation of CIA in the control of culture in our country, because they control through language and the codification of language and law various disorders. And the DSM-5, which is the psychiatric manual. It's like a CIA manual, basically. And it's the foundation and pillar for the mental health profession in the United States. So people look up DSM-5, DSM-V. Um, you'll see
This is
entire
where you
books
can get
about,
all the classifications of the different psychiatric diseases.
yes,
Yeah.
and that works directly in hand with the courts. And so when you go to a psychiatric evaluation or a psychologist, it has similar legal ramifications as if you go to a lawyer. There's attorney-client privilege, there's psychiatric client privilege, right? So we had access to files of psychiatrists and psychologists with the whole thing, including torture, sensory deprivation, alien abduction, um, um, the birth of schizophrenia, electronic schizophrenia, sensory deprivation of memory, reinstallation of memory. Now, today, all somebody needs to do is look up Cognify technology in YouTube. And this is the proposed technology to come out and be used on the prison population in the United States. It's actually being discussed, and there's actual research journals about the use of rewiring the brains of prisoners to release them back into the public. So what would be is if a convicted murderer or child molester or something goes on trial and he's convicted and he goes to prison for 15 years, rather than taxpayers paying all the money and all the stuff that goes into holding a prisoner, the prisoner would be given the option of going through a Cognify process, which would alter the neural net associated with the bad behavior. Um, Kind of like the movie Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's real.
Very convenient if it's not abused.
Of course, but it's going to be abused. And they have to, with these technologies, they always come out and say they're going to be use it for health reasons, usually mental health or physical health. That's what Elon Musk is doing
For your
with
own
the,
benefit, for your own safety, just like the Nazis
yes, yes,
were
yes.
saying back then.
Yeah. And all the dark secret stuff, which is why it's coming out in the first place, is for cultural control. And like I've said to you times before, this whole thing has to do with your right to have free will and your cognitive liberty. This includes things that you say, think, do, everything. They want to control all of that. They want a reduced global population, and they want to have a population that's a psycho-civilized society based upon the ideas and goals of Jose Delgado, which discussed this in multiple books and testimony that he gave to groups he was speaking to while he was alive. So this is the
The
big moment.
psycho-civilized society was what he was
Yes.
speaking of. So knowing all this and accepting all this we are talking about, and you're saying here, James, what should people do? Lean back,
Here's the thing.
make some popcorn,
So
or
on my, I have a Patreon account, and the activity going on in this Patreon account is not like anything else going on in the world. I'm the first person in history that has filed disclosures and statements rebutting the use of this type of activity or technology without my consent. So what I did is I created a document, it's pretty lengthy, um, that goes on record to state that I, under no circumstances, are going to willingly give, without my consent, any of my brain data, any of my biometrics, or any of my DNA or genetic information to any corporations, and that any violations of that, there would be repercussions. I also filed that with the UCC. So we're that particular group that I'm handling in there is the first in history actually to address this on a legal standpoint. So I have people contact me from India, Ireland, Australia, some in South Africa, some in South America, but mostly the United States, where people are filing stuff with the UCC, which is the Universal Commercial Code that governs commerce, because
it's all contract law.
basic contract law is the epicenter of this entire thing, because the idea and understanding of what, or overstanding of what informed consent is a very, very, very big deal.
Yeah.
It's, if there's anything I want people to understand is what this is. Most people didn't even learn about it until the COVID kill shots were starting to be distributed, because people didn't want to do it, because they felt that they were being lied to, and they were being lied to, right? And they got people and coerced people. The British did it, British intelligence did it, the United States did it. They got people to, they were shamed into taking it without having informed consent. So a lot of lawyers came out on the scene and was saying, no, 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 no. We need to be told exactly what's going on here before we participate in doing any of this. So I remember that going on, because informed consent for Americans, um, there isn't any, because most Americans don't read any contracts, and all the contracts associated with the data capture of your entire physical body, including your brain, you've given that away in all the agreements that you've made with all the technology companies that govern and make up your computer and cell phone. I
Every
use those two examples.
every time we tick the box and
Yes,
consent to terms and conditions.
yes, and nobody reads those,
No.
and they know that then nobody reads those,
Mm.
but they've got to cover themselves, and they've got to get you to agree to do those things. So the other most important part here is that with the technology, how it stands today, based upon all your agreements, tacit agreements and otherwise, um, they are going to be utilizing. It's hard to describe, but I would call it having you unconsciously, consciously agree to the terms of fusing your brain and data to computers and eventually quantum. So what does that mean? Uh, if I, if you agree, if we get to the point where you and I agree to have a hypnotic session together, I would use that hypnotic language to put you into a state to do something that you normally wouldn't do. This has been demonstrated on stage and by psychiatrists and psychologists for years. Could you get somebody to kill somebody under hypnosis? And the answer is yes, because it's already been done, and all that research is out there. It's in the books that we did. Same thing occurs with contracts. But it's a lot easier because people don't even read those. They don't even read their credit card agreements. They sure as hell don't read any of these things. So who's to blame really for this? We are. And in order to fix that, that's right. The only way out of this is in. The only way out is in. And what I mean is to say that we've got to go back and address the decisions and agreements we have made and rebut all of them. That means say no. But in order to do that, we've got to know what we're saying no to. And then those things have to be documented and filed to tell the environment in which we live, local cities and governments, as well as the UCC and federal government, that we're not participating and we don't agree to any of this. Because they've got to get you to agree to do it. Otherwise, none of this goes. I mean, all these companies have got power because we agreed to give it to them. It's simple as that.
You mean
if you don't like
cookies on the computer? It's all
yes.
part of it.
Yes, because every single day these Facebook, Meta, Apple, all their systems update all the time.
Two-factor identification, biophysical identification.
Yes.
It's only going one way to deliver everything you have to the big companies.
We're essentially giving away our future and unconsciously, consciously committing suicide. That's what's really happening.
So people can go to your Patreon channel, and I will of course include the link in this post. Also here in Denmark, we have visiting Cal Washington visiting from In Power Movement. That's another way of a brilliant way of making a stand and taking back constant and actually making the people who is doing this perpetrating against us, doing them responsible for their actions. So he's visiting actually around the same time that Steven Spielberg's movie is coming out. James, I want to play this trailer for this movie. I'm not sure if I can make you view it at the same time. I'm sure you are already informed about it, but it's so saying. So bear with me. It's a 2-minute clip here.
Okay.
I can see them. I am much more inclined now than I was when I made Close Encounters to really believe that we're not the only intelligent civilization in the universe.
What did you steal?
Secrets. People have a right to know the truth.
This is a story about us. All of us.
Good morning, Kansas City.
Up against the most extraordinary event in human history.
What's happening to me? I'm frightened. I'm frightened out of my wits.
You don't need to be. You have someone else.
Daniel Kellner.
Who is this?
Do not go back to the house. They found you. I don't know who you are, but they're gonna kill you.
The human race cannot accept what we know. We need to stop him any way we can.
What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing?
This 79-year cover-up of the truth has to end.
We're interrupting our coverage.
How will disclosure change us? I believe for the better. It will remind us of our capacity for empathy, and that there is something bigger out there than just ourselves.
The only way to know your purpose is to go back to where it all began.
I know you.
I know you do. What happened to us?
I I used to say to myself, wouldn't it be wonderful if all of this turned out to be true? I'm now thinking, wouldn't it be wonderful for people to know all of this is true?
So total amazing predictive programming, suggestive programming, just making us all set way into the belief system that they want us to inherit.
That's correct. So they will be, if you notice in there, they're fusing the computer and the central nervous system to put it into a state where they're actually post-suggesting to the public that by doing so, it will elevate the consciousness of the human race to put us in the next stage of our evolution. That's what it's about. And that's what they're actually doing or trying to do. But they want to see to it that the public will still go to human authority figures to get the truth, when that whole thing is going to collapse. That's what they're really afraid of. They're afraid of that when this overstanding occurs and people really finally get it, that they'll still be listened to, human authority figures. That's what they're afraid of. That's why they've done this, because you're going to see all sorts of people come out of the out of hiding, so to speak, and come in and act like experts when they're not really. They haven't really told the history of this whole thing. I have to do an interview this evening, actually, with one of the longest standing Chronicle people that have disclosed this over a long period of time. So this is necessary, though, because people need to realize that if they're interested in freedom, they absolutely must protect themselves now. Otherwise, once it gets to a certain point, you can't reverse it. You cannot reverse it. You cannot have an organic living being in the form that we are today once the line has been crossed. So when people join that Patreon account, what I'm doing actually is upon membership, I give them the document to file with their local city. It's kind of like an affidavit that they would file with their city and with the UCC themselves to put them on notice. If they're going to be utilizing your brain or your data, it's yours. And therefore, that's a contractual agreement where we're doing business, which means they have to pay you. Or if they're doing something without your consent, that's damages. And you can build a case to go into the courts and get damages. That's what needs to happen. It has to happen that way. Otherwise, you're not going to have any grounds or know anything that's happened to you at all. I can't emphasize this enough. This was the final message of Operation Mind Control: is if you don't govern thyself, you will be governed. You have to govern yourself. That means legally as well. You can't just glide and be a passive observer in culture. I don't care if it's in Denmark, England, Africa, America. You cannot do that anymore, ever. You're not going to make it. It's just not going to happen. So that's why I wanted to come on here, because you're actually the first person that I'm speaking to before I make any statements to the government here. So
take back sovereignty, personal, back to the human being. You are remind yourself that you are that human being. James Martinez, thank you a million for taking your time for this, and thank you for your work throughout decades now. Thanks, James.
Thank you so much.